It's the Fitness Lab Pittsburgh podcast, a new episode every week. A podcast about movement, part of making your life complete. Fitness Lab Pittsburgh, a.k.a. FitLabPGH, brings you interviews with people in the Pittsburgh area who understand movement is part of what makes life complete. Looking for a new movement idea or just want to hear interesting stories about people who make movement a priority? This is the podcast for you. Whether you consider the gym, dojo, or fitness studio your third place, or just want to learn more about movement, activity, and fitness to enhance your life, give FitLabPGH a listen. We interview locals in the Pittsburgh area who make Pittsburgh a great place to move. Subscribe to us on Apple Podcasts, Stitcher, or Google Play, or check out our website for other subscription options. Subscribing is free and gives you notifications when we release new episodes. Each podcast episode will be long enough to pique your interest and short enough to hold your attention. Have an idea for an episode? Know somebody we should interview? Or just want to connect with us? Drop us an email, FitLabPGH@gmail.com, or follow us on Twitter or Instagram at FitLabPGH. Already a fan of FitLabPGH? Check out our sister podcast, Moving to Live. Moving to Live is a podcast for movement professionals and amateur aficionados. Moving to Live offers weekly interviews with movement professionals featuring topics from career development to coaching tips and education resources to advice for parents of student athletes. We look forward to hearing from you, and we hope you enjoy our next interview, starting now. FitLabPGH and our sister podcast, Moving to Live, firmly believe that movement should be treated as a lifestyle, not just an activity. That's why FitLabPGH, in addition to our weekly podcast releases, 3 times a week releases movement tip and lifestyle hack videos available on all social media channels, including Instagram and YouTube. Every Thursday, we also do a written FitLab Pittsburgh Features, where we feature a mover or somebody who moves, 2-legged or 4-legged, in the Pittsburgh area. If you like what you're hearing, leave us some feedback on Apple Podcasts or whatever the podcast app you listen to our podcast on, or connect with us in social media. Let us know what you like, offer us suggestions for future interviews, or ideas for movement tips and lifestyle hacks. Until then, give a listen to our next interview. FitLabPGH is back with another podcast because we firmly believe that movement should be treated as a lifestyle, not just an activity. Today is the second time we are at MECKA Fitness. We were here to interview Maribeth from Fenix Fit Bars, and we are now back to interview the owner, founder, and all-around do-everything guy of MECKA Fitness. We are with Kevin Beamon. Kevin, thanks for taking time on a Monday afternoon to talk to FitLabPGH.
Well, thanks for inviting me.
First question we always want to ask people that we interview for FitLab Pittsburgh is, are you a Pittsburgh native? If you're not a Pittsburgh native, what brought you here? If you are, why are you still here?
Sure. I'm definitely a homegrown Yinzer without the thick accent. But yeah, born here, east side of Pittsburgh. And I've boomeranged a few times, just like a lot of people have. But I always end up coming back. So we've been back for this stint for about 6.5 years.
And back from where most recently?
Sure. We were living in Miami for about 2 years. My wife took a general counsel position for a Latin American division of a local Pittsburgh company here. So we traveled down there for 2 years. I was able to still do my old career remotely, so that worked out for everyone. But now we're doing this. So.
And then what brought you back to Pittsburgh? Because a lot of people, when they hear you lived in Florida, because I lived in Florida for a while, and people go, why did you leave?
Yeah, a great place to visit, right?
That's exact. Great place to visit between about November and March.
Yeah, no, it was a really great 2 years we spent down there. Completely different culture. We have 2 little girls, and it was great to get them out of the bubble of Mount Lebanon for a little bit, but it was also great to return and realize this is a really wonderful community outside of Pittsburgh that is great to raise your kids in.
And you are the owner of MECKA Fitness. How did you get into that? Because you alluded to the fact that you had at least one career previously, as most of us have had.
Sure. Well, I had no idea I'd be owning a gym or working in the fitness industry. I was a real estate developer. Prior to that, I was in sales for media companies. And when we went to Florida for that 2 years, I found CrossFit and very quickly lost 30 pounds. But at the same time was completely stressed about what I was going to do when we returned back to Pittsburgh, because it was a two-year assignment. And I was hoping someone would open up a CrossFit in Mount Lebanon, because I thought Mount Lebanon, number one, is a great community, and great communities strive in a CrossFit environment. So I was hoping someone would do that. No one was. So I went and got certified, and I really opened up the other side of the building as a CrossFit facility, strictly to have a place to work out and continue the methodology of CrossFit. So that was kind of the birth of what's going on in this building.
And I'm always curious, you mentioned that you found CrossFit and you lost 30 pounds. Were you an active kid growing up and you kind of lost your way with movement because of career and family, or were you somebody who just was never active until you started doing CrossFit?
No, I was an athlete in high school, then went to college and probably stopped being an athlete, and then came out in my 20s. And, you know, I don't remember fitness and overall focus of people's daily life being so focused on fitness when I was in my teens and my 20s. Seems the tide has changed in a great way. But there were definitely times where I would be overweight, I would be emaciated, I would go back to being overweight. And a lot of that was that I just had that body type, you know, that can change very, very quickly. So yeah, once I got married and we had kids, I kind of let myself go. And then, you know, very quickly when we moved to Miami, found a fitness regimen that I was able to relate to. The methodology of CrossFit is very numbers driven. There's a task involved, and I like that part of it. It wasn't just do 3 sets of 10 in the gym. It was how many reps or rounds can you get in this time period, or how much work can you get done in this time period. And you're always comparing yourself to yourself, but also your peers. So.
And I know some people are going to say, well, it'd be easy for me to work out if I lived in Miami too, because it's always warm. But here in Pittsburgh, although we're here on the first relatively warm day of the spring, I know 6 weeks ago it could have been 15 degrees. And a lot of people say, I'm not going to go out and go to the gym. What's your response to that? Or what was it that's made you realize it's like, okay, when I move back to Pittsburgh, I'm going to continue doing something involving movement, and it's going to be CrossFit?
Well, it's the same thing in Miami. I mean, in August, it feels like you want to die. It feels like you've got 10 hair dryers blowing in your face and you're trying to get your breath and do a pull up or do a 400-meter run. So, you know, it's just a different extreme. Here in Pittsburgh, you know, we just turn the heat on, you know, but definitely it's just two different extremes.
I know I lived in Florida for 5 years, and my first dog I got in Florida, and I still remember on an August day that you referred to, as I opened the door at like 5:30 in the morning to let her out. And I remember her looking up at me as if to say, are you kidding? Are we actually going outside? And now, having moved back to the Northeast, the realization is when it's hot and humid, there's not much you can do. But when it's cold or it's snowy, you can always put on enough layers to get out where you need to go, or if you're an outdoor mover.
Yeah. Totally. So it's all perspective. People, you know, think that the weather is always perfect in an area like Miami, and it's rarely perfect.
So you move back to Pittsburgh. There's no CrossFit gym where you want to do it. Some people say, well, there's no gym. I know that you can find workouts of the day online, and you can do it in the privacy of your home. Why was the decision to say, I'm going to open my own facility versus I'm going to spend some money from Rogue or someplace like that and turn my garage into my own personal facility? Well,
it was definitely the community aspect. I mean, that was at least more than 50% of why I found results. You know, we moved to Miami. My wife would go to work. My kids would go to school. I'd do a few hours of work at Starbucks, make some phone calls. I'd go to the gym. And that was really my time that I was able to interact with people and actually make friends. I'm not saying it's easy or hard to make friends in Miami, but we knew we were only going to be there 2 years. So the ability to connect with other people, have that like-minded fitness mentality, and then push each other. I really still hate working out by myself, and I rarely do that. So I knew the value of having community around you of like-minded people to get the results that you want.
And I know there may be some listeners who are looking for what they want to do to start moving more, or they may have heard stories about CrossFit that if you're not a hardcore athlete, you can't do it. I know we're coming up on or in the middle of various qualifications for the CrossFit Games coming up in the summer. And there are some people who are CrossFit athletes that's what they want to do. It's like, if I can just qualify for regionals, or if I can qualify for nationals, it's like, that's complete. And then there's people who maybe if I can win. Talk a little bit about CrossFit for those people who are using it for something like you are, where you said, I lost 30 pounds with it, where somebody maybe not be competitive per going to competitions, but wants the community aspect and wants the idea of somebody saying, hey, where were you on Monday? We missed you.
Sure. Yeah. I in my mind, and this is strictly my way of thinking, there's really three types of CrossFit athletes or participants. It's the GPP, which is general physical preparedness, people like myself, that, I want to hang out with a bunch of people that are all doing the same thing I'm doing. I want to look better naked. I want to be healthy. I don't want to have high blood pressure. I want someone to tell me what to do. Right. And then on the other side of the spectrum are the truly elite athletes, the people that you see on the CrossFit Games that either have this mentality that will not stop, and they are totally 200% dedicated to their now full-time job, which is being a elite CrossFit athlete. And then in the middle, there's somewhere that are people that either believe they can get to that elite place, or simply enjoy having a more high level CrossFit experience. And the majority of those three groups really fall into the GPP. And that's what I don't want to say our focus is here. We definitely have people that are competitors and do many more high level things than the general public here. But since I fall into that GPP category, I really feel like we can affect more people and save a lot of lives and family relationships and a lot of heartache if you just move. Mm-hmm.
I'm curious about how your friends, before you started doing a lot of physical activity, you said you don't remember growing up about there being such an emphasis. And do you think that was because you weren't around people who thought that way, or it wasn't as involved?
I think it had to do with, yes, those things, obviously. If I was hanging out with, Olympic level swimmers, I probably would have been a better swimmer. But in my opinion, I just don't think the ethos and the media and just the way things worked, physical fitness wasn't as a focus in my teens and 20s. And,
people that you know from back then who know what you do now and know the fact that you own a fitness business, do they look at you and say, what the heck happened to you, Kevin? Or you're an idiot, or you're crazy, or wow, how did you do that?
Well, I definitely, I think everyone has that experience when you go onto Facebook and someone pops up and you haven't seen them for a while, you barely recognize them, and then you realize, at least for me, like, oh, they're the same age as me, And it's not because I have better genes or anything. It's just because I have decided for the last almost 12 years to take control of my body and have fun doing it. I'm by no means, someone who is on that elite level stature, but if there's really, you can do the minimum and still become healthy and look good. And then you can take the other route and eat whatever you want, drink whatever you want, no movement, and you have a different result. So, I think people nowadays want to find ways to extend their life and be healthy. And I feel really lucky that I found that when I was 39, 40 years old, instead of not finding it all. I wish I would have found it 10 or 15 years before that, but I'm grateful for the time that I do get. So,
and that seems to be, we've interviewed a couple of people who found fitness or movement I'm going to say later in life at 39, even though that really isn't later in life because you may be less than halfway there, hopefully.
Yes. Let's not talk about our mortality right now.
But the fact that many people say, I wish I'd found that sooner. And those are often the people that can have the most impact as opposed to somebody who was an athlete during their teenage years and then just recognized that I'm just going to continue it even if I'm not competing at the college level or not competing at the elite level. We all see those people that rain or shine, and not to say I'm classified in the elite level, but I'm kind of rain or shine. If I don't get out, I'm a grouch and I need to be that. But people who find it later often realize when you get that person who comes in and maybe they look a little lost because they don't know the difference between a bumper plate and a regular plate, and they don't know what an Olympic lift is, and they don't understand that it's okay that when you try to lift something heavy, you can let out a scream and nobody's going to say, who's that crazy woman over in the corner yelling? Have you found that with clients and customers that have come in here that because you can appreciate what it's like to be 30 pounds overweight, that it's easier for you to interact with, not in a negative term, but the beginners are the people who say, I don't know where to start? Yeah.
I mean, you have to have real empathy for people through experience, and everybody started somewhere, even those elite people. I mean, nobody came out of the womb with a gold medal on around their neck. Some people were destined for it, but it didn't mean they didn't have to start somewhere. So being able to connect with an individual that comes in the gym and remember how it hurt, and how sometimes not even physically, but mentally feeling out of place, feeling like you don't belong there. And that I think is really the key to transferring this knowledge, because if someone isn't open to receiving that knowledge, and what's stopping them from receiving it is these mental barriers that they feel like they don't deserve to be in a space like this when they absolutely do.
Knowing what you know now, do you think if you'd known it when you were 20 years old, your career path would have taken a slightly different route and you would have gotten into fitness sooner?
I have no idea.
So you come back to Pittsburgh, you open up a CrossFit facility so you can have like-minded people to work out with.
Yes.
And very often when you think of CrossFit, you think of these dark, dank, for lack of a better term, boxes, because it's a place to get work done. And then people go on their way. And one of the reasons people like CrossFit is because you can get that workout in, and it may be early in the morning, it may be lunchtime, it may be dinner time. But you didn't stop with a CrossFit facility. You also opened a multi-purpose or multi-activity facility. How did that come about?
Sure. Well, we had the opportunity. The initial lease that we signed really probably was the beginning of something that can happen that is great, because a lot of times people get into whatever they can afford at the time. They're stuck in a lease that says maybe you have to be here 3 or 5 years. Their growth doesn't match the amount of time on the lease. We were lucky enough to find a facility that we were able to start small and then grow. And then about halfway in, about 3 years in, we had the ability to take over, a 10,000 square foot annex to the lease, which is in the same building. And I knew that just doubling our CrossFit membership wasn't going to be financially obtainable. We weren't going to double the space of our lease and automatically double our membership. So I started going up to New York at that time, which was about 4 years ago, to see what was going on in the fitness community up there. And obviously, things like SoulCycle and Barry's Boot Camp and Pay-As-You-Go Fitness was really successful. And nobody really was doing that here yet in Pittsburgh. So we decided to open up a spinning studio. We talked to Richard Butler about rowing classes, and everyone had no idea what that was at the time. And then we also had a successful boot camp that we ran through CrossFit. So we decided to fold those three things and build a new brand that had nothing to do with CrossFit, and trying really to lower the barrier to entry for someone to come in and get fit with us. Because when you say CrossFit, you're going to get one of two reactions. Oh, that sounds fun and crazy, or I could never do that. So really eliminating the word CrossFit and using our own brand, which is MECKA Fitness, really brought in a wave of new customers. And, little did they know, besides maybe the spinning class, we were disguising CrossFit and tricking them into doing it, and they didn't realize it.
I think what a lot of people forget if they get hung up on one, air quotes, exercise method is everything involves movement. And I don't think anybody who's been in the movement in the CrossFit industry for a long time is going to say CrossFit has invented exercises, but they've done a great job of building community and making people understand that there can be fun ways to move that are also hard if they're correctly taught. Yeah,
CrossFit did not invent the air squat. However, what they did invent was a methodology that mixed things together that people weren't mixing together, like running and Olympic lifting or rowing and gymnastics under a time domain. So, we just switched it up and we made it a little more accessible, a little less aggressive. I still love doing CrossFit, but at my age, at 47, I don't do it as much. There's other things here I enjoy doing as well. And we're finding that a lot of the customer base here really enjoys having that choice and not having to go to a different studio, which is really why we call it MECKA Fitness, because it's a whole Mecca of fitness. It's a journey, like you're going to Mecca. But people have an option. If they want to take a CrossFit class one day, they can do that. If they want to take a yoga class or a rowing class, we have boxing. We have a full menu of entrees, appetizers, and desserts.
And when you first opened the facility here, did you anticipate you were going to expand beyond CrossFit, or did you just kind of, as you had the CrossFit, realized, hey, there's room here for more movement options?
No, I did not have any kind of preconceived notion of what we were going to end up being. I still don't. But I'm a business guy. I saw an opportunity, and listening to customers is really important. And understanding why people were leaving, why people were staying, what they liked about the place, and making sure that those voices were considered when you think about, how is it that can we grow our community and expand our customer base?
I'm curious, you mentioned that you're doing a wider variety of activities than when you first started doing CrossFit because you're getting old or getting older. I'm reminding of one of my clients who's a runner who said, it really is true. When you get older, recovery takes a lot longer. How was it? Because a lot of people struggle with this. How was it? Did you realize it was taking you longer to recover, or you were getting little aches and pains from doing it that you needed to expand beyond doing one thing?
Yeah, all those things. The end of the workout comes and I'm still on the ground and everybody is cleaned up. But that's a natural thing when you age, is that things really don't come as easy as they used to. And it takes a while to realize that. You think for a while, you're like, well, maybe I'm just having a bad week or a bad month, or I've got this injury. But it's a different, it should be a different set of parameters as that's why when you look at CrossFit as a whole and the more competitive part of it, they break it down, and there's teens and preteens and regular adults, and then after 35 they start breaking these age groups down into from 35 to 40, from 40 to 45, because you do slow down a bit and you do have to think about recovery more. So that being said, I only speak for myself, is that I can't do high volume all week long, or if I know my Achilles is killing me, I try to do something else, and that was part of the idea of offering more things here, more recovery type classes that are active recovery. We have a new class called MPlex, which is a mix of yoga and high intensity interval training, and it's almost like a yoga sandwich. You do a little yoga in the beginning, a 20-minute HIIT interval, and then another about 15 to 20 minutes of yoga.
We're talking with Kevin Beamon of MECKA Fitness in Mount Lebanon. I'm always curious when we interview people for FitLabPGH. My two favorite questions to ask is you're standing around talking to like-minded movers and you want to describe the most interesting or hardest or most fun movement activity you've done in the past. What is it and would you do it again?
Here at the gym or
just in general in life?
Oh, in general in life. Well, I ran a marathon when I was 28 and that was a one and done thing. But, I have so much respect for people that do that. But then on the other side of the coin, I also realize doing that or doing anything excessively isn't healthy. I feel like running X amount of miles on a consistent basis, I'm talking long distance, really is something that eats your muscles. If you look at a sprinter versus a marathon runner, you'll see that sprinter looks way healthier than the marathon runner at age XYZ. So, definitely running a marathon was challenging and fun, and I'm checking it off the list. But on the other side of the coin, I realized that I really enjoy mixing things up. And obviously you can tell that by the offerings that we have here.
I always find the answer to that question interesting. We had one individual, his answer for that was, I took a yoga class once. It was interesting. It's not for me. And I think that's the important thing, that there are some things for some people they just aren't made to do or they don't want to do. And there's literally an unlimited number of movement activities to explore.
Absolutely.
I'm also curious, my other favorite question is there something in the future that movement related is like, I'm going to do it at some point. I haven't gotten to it yet, but I'm really looking forward to doing it at some point.
I always think about running, or participating in a triathlon. I enjoy swimming. The biking part of it would be fun, but nothing long distance. So who knows? Maybe not.
We've been talking with Kevin Beamon. He is the owner of MECKA Fitness and CrossFit of Mount Lebanon. Yeah. He's got it painted on the wall. I told him to embarrass me if I pronounced it or did anything incorrectly. They offer a variety of activities, and we'll have extensive show notes, including links to the website, so you can find out what's going on here on a day-to-day basis. Kevin, thanks for taking time to talk to FitLabPGH.
Absolutely. Thanks for having me.
Thanks for listening to the latest episode of FitLabPGH, brought to you by Moving to Live. Intro and exit music is Marathon Man by Jason Shaw. Check out the show notes for contact info for our latest guests, links to other information mentioned in the episode, and links to our sister podcast, Moving to Live. Moving to Live is a podcast about movement and exercise for professionals and amateur aficionados. Moving to Live offers topics from career development to coaching tips and education resources to advice for parents of student athletes. You can subscribe to us on Apple Podcasts, Stitcher, or Google Play, or check out our website for other subscription options. Your free subscription gets you notified when we release a new episode. Questions, comments, suggestions? Email us at fitlabpgh@gmail.com or follow us on Twitter and Instagram at fitlabpgh and like us on Facebook. If you enjoy our podcasts, please tell your friends about us and consider leaving us a review on Apple Podcasts. Make FitLabPGH a go-to place to learn more about movement in the Pittsburgh area. Until next time, keep on moving.